Do you think it's possible because every time you go into a meeting, you want to talk about your dad rock band?
Oh, God, I don't know.
Do you go into meetings and they say, do you have any film pitches? And you say, well, I've been thinking we can handle Steely Dan now.
Yeah, I don't know. This is becoming a therapy session.
I'm not in a hurry, so at your convenience.
What happened? Do you have an easy grasp of something hot?
David Wain, welcome back to Bullseye. It's always nice to see you, and congratulations on the movie.
Thank you so much, and always wonderful to be here.
When you are making a movie at this scale,
Yes.
This is a small to modest scale.
Correct.
What is the difference between a movie like this that gets made and a movie like this that doesn't get made?
Oh, I don't know. This one took a really long time for anyone to say yes. And I guess partly was we had some celebrities attached to it. And that was what allowed us to at least get interest on a producer that was able to put together some investors. But this was a real old school a large group of investors, all putting in a relatively small amount of money and making it completely on our own, and then taking it to Sundance and having a distributor pick it up.
Was it a matter of you and Ken Marino, who co-wrote the movie with you, just classic sitting in a room with Post-it notes and a typewriter and we've got a great idea for a movie?
Yeah. I mean, well, Ken and I have a thing that we've done 3 times, and 3 times we've made a movie out of it, which is we lock ourselves up for 12 hours a day for 7 days in a row, starting with nothing, no idea even. And we force ourselves to emerge with a first draft of a movie at the end of that period.
And the two of you have been working together in some capacity or other, basically your entire adult lives.
Yeah. Well, we met the first day of college. So since then. But this little thing we've figured out, because life is distracting and there's always other things, and we thought we would take a inspiration from the way production shoots go, which is you show up and you're there for 12 hours on the clock and there's no wiggle room. Why not apply that to writing for a week? And so that gets us from 0 to a first draft.
What was the first time you did that?
We did it first, like 2005 or something, and that emerged with the script for our movie The 10. And then the second time we did it, it was for the movie Wanderlust. That came out of that, and the third time was this one.
What's the experience like? How is it different now the third time than it was the first time?
Not that different. It's really fun, because you say to your people in your life, okay, I'm off the clock right now. I'm doing this thing, as if you're going to like a court trial or a shoot. And we'd take a lunch break. We'd go for a walk. As part of the writing process, you're talking about random things, whatever. But the truth is that the 7-day session to write this current movie was 10 years ago. So the next time we do it, we'll see.
When you show up, do you literally have nothing? You don't even have a manila folder? Literally
nothing. When we did the 10, I remember I looked through a file of ideas I had randomly written down over the 10 years before that. And a lot of those were the seeds of the 10 vignettes in the movie The 10. But as far as the premise of the film, no, we start with nothing. And this time too.
So tell me how this idea of a woman whose husband exercises his celebrity sex pass and then goes on a quest to exercise hers came out of nothing.
No more or less than at some point in that first morning, we probably were like, what if something about the way couples have a celebrity pass? And okay, sure. What would happen? What if it goes, what's the high degree you could take that to? What would that lead to? Oh, fun. Maybe that. It's, it's no more scientific than that.
At what point in the process do you write in Jon Hamm and John Slattery?
Well, we built the story in a more generic, placeholdery way at first. And then...
Because to some extent, the quest is not dependent on Jon Hamm being the end goal. It could be Kyle MacLachlan or whatever.
It could be, although for my money, the perfect convergence of the fact that Jon Hamm has a specific image in the world, and then John Slattery has a very specific other image in the world, and their relationship, and the fact that I happen to know them both and have worked with them both, and they're both so funny and as actors. It's one of those things where I can't imagine any other two people playing those two roles as themselves, versions of themselves in this film.
So how did it become them and not generic?
Well, I guess when
did you just look through your contacts on your phone for the handsomest guy?
I mean, we had the sort of the general script for a while, and nobody was interested in making it for a while. And then we hooked up with this great producer, Anthony Bregman. And then when it got closer to being a thing that might actually get made, that's when we sort of rebuilt it to be about Jon Hamm and John Slattery. And then when we finished that version of it, we called them up and said, we wrote this script that's all about you, and hopefully you'll like it.
What was that conversation like? I mean, was that a literal, did you literally call?
I literally called Jon Hamm on the phone, and I said exactly that we've written this thing. It's really funny. There's a part in it for you, but it's more than a part. It's the whole movie's really about you, and except your part in it is relatively small, and I think I cut myself off in the middle of the conversation. I said, will you just read this? And it'll explain it all. And he said, sure. And similar conversation with John Slattery. And then they both relatively quickly were just like, yeah, it's funny. Let's do it. And they didn't really have any, because these are fictionalized versions of them, they weren't, there was no conversation of, I wouldn't do that in real life or anything like that.
I mean, Jon Hamm, there's no greater hunk in Hollywood.
Hunkosaurus, I would say.
Okay. So first of all, let's say just right off the bat, no greater hunk in Hollywood.
No.
Certainly. But also there's no greater hunk with a passion for acting like a doofus when he gets the opportunity.
Yeah.
Jon Hamm is in the end of this movie.
Yeah.
Okay. And Jon Hamm, I'm guessing this man's on the set for a day or two.
Yeah.
This is not a huge ask of Jon Hamm, other than that he's the entire premise of the film. He has to show up and do his job, and he does a wonderful job. But this is a small part for Jon Hamm. John Slattery is a co-star of this movie.
No, John Slattery is a big part. Yeah. He's part of the core group of misfits that go on this whole journey with Gail Daughtry, Zoe Deutsch. Yes.
And you're also asking John Slattery to build a character in a way that, look, Jon Hamm is making choices. You know what I mean? Like I'm not putting down the work that Jon Hamm does in this film, but like John Slattery can't get by on it's cute that John Slattery is playing himself because he's in too much of the movie.
Right. No, it's not a cameo on any level. It's a very weird version of John Slattery. But it was basically on the page, and then he, as every great comic actor does, he elevated it in ways that we never would have imagined in the way he did the performance.
He is an amazing comic actor. He's so funny.
Unbelievable. I mean, he was always, so funny on Mad Men. He was the comic relief of that show all the time. I'm actually rewatching the whole show with my son right now, and it's just incredible, And Jon Hamm is the guy who became uber famous immediately from that one role, but he was always a comedy nerd. And so, he keeps taking any chance he can to flex those muscles.
So when you take a pitch for a movie this silly, even if it has celebrities attached, what's it like to try and sell that in show business in the 2020s?
Well, we did it as a script. We never pitched it before having the script, which we wrote in those 7 days.
Well, the script is also very silly.
Yes. And it was not a successful pitch, but we basically sent it sort of around to our reps and to places that we felt like might have interest, at the time when we wrote it. And they all said no, pretty definitively. And so you get to that point where the reps that you have are like, let's put a pin in this for now. And, we'll get back to this, circle back on this one, all that euphemism for this is dead. And I've done this also with They Came Together and with Wet Hot American Summer. I just was like, no, I'm not taking that answer. I love this. I'm just going to not shut up about it until we somehow get it made someday. And then finally, Anthony Bregman read it, who's a producer I had actually wanted to work with for years and years before we even made Wet Hot American Summer. And he was like, "Oh my God, I read this. It's the funniest thing I've ever read on a plane. And let's figure this out. It probably won't be easy, but let's figure this out." And so that began a relatively short journey from that point on to actually getting it up and running.
You said 10 years total from
Yeah.
2 weeks in a lockdown, 7 days in lockdown,
Yeah.
to getting the movie made.
Yeah.
What was the portion that started with a producer actually wanting to do it?
That was probably a year before we started shooting. Once Anthony came on, then not too long after that, another producer, Christine Jane, came on, and she was very instrumental in putting together all of the investor money.
When you're trying to convince people to make a movie like this, do you get the argument back, people don't want to watch silly comedies?
I think the in between the lines response we often would get is that, or like, this is just too weird, too left of center, this is too like you trying to make your friends laugh, not real enough. Also, this particular movie, people are like, it's too Hollywood, too inside, too celebrity. It's just, you're never going to get somebody like that. All those things, and
you'll never get Richard Kind.
Et cetera. Yeah, and so
you got Richard Kind and Fred Malamed. You showed them.
There you go. And my response has always been like, you're not wrong for what, I just love it. And I hope we get to make it somehow. But what's weird, I will say though, Jesse, is that somehow we took this movie, ultimately we made the movie, we took it to Sundance, and it got a reception that is the opposite of all those things. Like somehow they're like, this is the David Wain's most mainstream thing, or the response really felt like people were ready and wanting this movie, not like so often I feel like my work gets put out there and the initial response is arms crossed and what are you trying to do here? And, maybe it's kind of funny. I don't know.
Well, I mean, your movie, Wet Hot American Summer, is now one of the more beloved cult comedies of the last 25 years or so, and was greeted with critical hostility substantially, not exclusively, but substantially.
Right. But quite a bit of real hostility.
Including Roger Ebert famously wrote an extended parody version of Hello Mutta, Hello Fata that was specifically about how much he hated the movie.
Which we are actually singing on our tour with our band this summer. We're doing like a tribute show to Wet Hot American Summer. And in our shows, we sing a full version of Roger Ebert's horrible review of our movie.
But at this point, people know what the David Wain and David Wain Ken Marino brands have to offer.
I would say leave the alt comedy maximum fun bubble, and that's not true.
Okay.
But yes, in a certain stripe of the public, sure. But
I mean, Wanderlust was a pretty regular movie. I mean, with movie stars and
a bomb.
Okay.
But
very funny.
I loved it. I mean, with the exception of Role Models, which was a modestly successful film, every movie I've made has been a financial loser, at least at first. And I don't care. And the people who love them don't care because they're great. And so I'm not a rich guy, but I'm very proud of what I've been able to be a part of.
At some point, you must have made a choice that you were going to focus your career on locking yourself in a room for 12 hours a day for a week every few years with Ken Marino and trying to get small feature films made rather than just directing episodes of Mad About You or whatever.
I'm going to say no.
No?
I'm going to say I wanted to do those things.
Uh-huh.
And it hasn't happened as much. I have done some of that too. I directed this whole series on Peacock that was about Steph Curry a couple of years ago. And I've done a million other things. And we've had a lot of TV. We did the Netflix series of Wet Hot, and we did Medical Police and blah, blah, blah. But yes, I don't know how much it's by design, but the things that have emerged that have been sort of considered part of my canon of work that people remember has been those kind of things where me and Ken lock ourselves in a room. Yeah.
Do you feel like you want to dedicate some portion of your life energy to standing up for silliness? Or do you think it's just a coincidence that that just happens to be what comes out of you?
I would say yes. I certainly with this movie, it does feel like a rallying cry for like, hey, comedies that are just funny need to be in theaters, and standing up for a movie not needing to be anything but entertaining and funny, I think is very important right at this moment. And I am true. I did not expect this would get a theatrical release, and it's not only getting a theatrical, it's getting a pretty decent one that the distributor seems to be really behind. And I am just, don't take that for granted. I think it's awesome. And I do hope that more, there's very, very, very few original small comedies distributed in theaters. And so I do think audiences don't even know what they're missing at this point.
I mean, there's a certain amount of hunger in me for like, just to see more Van Wilder type movies. Like,
sure.
There's nothing.
Yeah.
There's no 17th American Pie movie.
Exactly. And you're right. And that's, I think Scary Movie 6 did well, right? Like, cause like, it doesn't matter what it is. It's just like, sometimes you want to see a comedy.
Naked Gun did really well.
Yeah. And it was great.
Yeah. It was
I thought it was awesome. Akiva did exactly the right thing. I was kind of blown away by how he pulled that off. But we should be looking for comedies that don't rely on being a 50-year franchise as well, So we made one.
You started doing comedy with Ken Marino and others in the state when you were in college, which became an MTV show. And you were always part of the on-camera talent, but you also were always one of the primary behind-the-camera talents. What do you think you learned from shooting 1,000 sketches over 2 or 3 years on MTV and making a bunch of stuff for the stage in the years afterwards in New York that you shot that translated to making actual feature films?
I think one of the things I learned then and early on in my journey of being in that 11-person comedy group was the value of going up to bat as many times as possible, and the value of quantity over. I remember being very insecure during college because I'm like, oh, my sketches that I write aren't getting picked to be in the show. And I was at Brown University on a visiting semester with Michael Showalter, and he was like, it's because you're not writing as many. It's like, he's like, you've got to write 10, and then maybe you'll pitch 5 of those, and then maybe one of those goes to the next level. And so now, and then if you write 20, then, and it seems an obvious thing, but I see people, people that ask me for advice that are starting their careers not understanding that. And it's just this idea, you can't just have one thing. You have to just keep trying. And that's how your muscles grow. And so I learned that a lot over and over doing the state. And that's what comes to mind.
What about aesthetically, artistically? What about in terms of the way you use a camera or the way that you cut tape?
Yeah. I mean, similarly, I think I just started to figure out, I had been playing around with cameras and editing since I was 12, but when I was 12, it was a VHS camera, and editing was to put the two machines together and tape sections from one to the other. It was very bulky, but then I learned to, this is not what you asked exactly, but I learned to do nonlinear editing on a computer when it first was introduced in like the early 90s during the state. And I just think by repetition, I started to develop a certain voice and a certain taste and a certain rhythm. And I learned for myself, there's like a certain density and a certain, no matter how silly or absurd the story might be, whether it's a 3-minute sketch or a 90-minute movie, that the structure of the plot is still of paramount importance. And I just, I guess I learned some of the basics of how comedy works in editing and shooting, and I don't know.
What's an example of how the basics of comedy work in editing, for example?
Well, I would say that one of them is that clarity trumps creativity sometimes. You just want to make sure you're seeing a person's body and their performance, and you're understanding what they're saying, and you're featuring what they're doing, and that a premise or a camera idea needs to be secondary to that, maybe more than in a drama. And yet there's certain things certain cinematic ideas that help the comedy. What pops in my head is Wet Hot American Summer, and they have the false start about doing a baseball game, and then the guy runs away into the distance and has a little conversation with the Camp Tiger Claw head counselor that's far in the distance, and you never really see. It's like so far away you can't even really see it.
They're going to have like an intercamp game.
Yeah.
And the conference happens so far from the baseball field.
Right.
And the camera stays in.
And we had a shot of a regular 2-shot of the two guys talking, but I like the idea of keeping it slightly, I guess, more cinematic and just having that as like this non-important conversation far away. And that helps that particular joke, and I guess it's just cinematic language stuff that translates to comedy that I've picked up or learned or tried over the years.
I mean, editing makes such a huge difference in terms of pace.
Well, I find that I'm shocked. I've been doing this for almost 40 years professionally, and I am shocked still to this day how much shaving 2 frames off a cut turns it from not funny to funny, or the other way around. It's incredible. I always go through all the same psychological tricks. Like we watch the dailies of the movie and you see the first cut and you're like, oh God, this is like terrible, and then you get to a certain point and you're like, oh, this is great. I think we're done. I think we got it. And then you realize, oh no, there's still 6 months more of like stuff to dig in and really get there. And you just can never imagine. It's like having a child. You forget all of the ups and downs that come with, especially that post-production process where there's more to dive into. There's more to find and to create in that editorial process that you just can't predict it when you're doing the shoot. And I love it. I mean, it's like a magical thing. And to work with a great editor, which we did in this case with John Daigle, who is, it's the conversation back and forth between what they're trying and then what you're trying. And in this case, basically it was myself, Ken, and John. It was just a really interesting dialogue for months trying to find this movie. I loved it.
Let's talk about Sundance for a second. I only went to Sundance one time. And other than remembering how many people from Los Angeles think it's okay to wear Ugg boots in snow,
Yeah.
which is a big thing that really blew my head. I'm like, these people's feet must be so wet.
Yeah.
Sundance is a very thoughtful and serious affair, in addition to the silly show business parts of it, right? There's like silly show business track where it's like the Belvedere Lounge,
right?
Whatever. But mostly it's independent film, being very sincere,
right.
Real artists with a capital A. What's it like to bring a movie this dumb to that context?
Well, I feel like we're the class clown a lot of the time, or the exception to the rule for sort of feeling, which I guess you could extrapolate to how I felt in the world or in the world of the business. Like we're the ones taking the back door to making a movie that gets seen because we're choosing not to follow certain rules that everyone else has to follow.
Were you surprised that you even got in?
Yes. Well,
because there's not often, to the extent that there are indie silly comedies or whatever, they're going to premiere at South by Southwest or
another just very
Slam Dance.
Yeah. There's a very particular fortunate turn of events, which is I made a short film during college called Aisle 6, was my thesis film. And I submitted it to Sundance Shorts. It didn't get in, but the guy who was running the shorts program wrote me a letter basically saying, I really love this movie. Submit it again next year. And I was like, okay. So I did, and it got in the next year. And I went to Sundance 1993, and it was much, much tinier then. I met all these I met Robert Rodriguez and all these filmmakers there and had a really great time. It was a weird and cool experience. And then that guy became the head of the whole festival in later years. And so by the time I made my first feature in 2001, submitted that, and he was aware, and I think was very helpful in getting that in. And then that was Wet Hot American Summer, which did well at Sundance, even though it didn't get picked up, and became just a popular thing that happened that year. So then I returned again with the 10 and with They Came Together and with Futile and Stupid Gesture, and then now Gail Daughtry and the Celebrity Sex Pass. And so it's been, now I feel like a Sundance guy, you know? And it's really the only festival I've ever premiered a movie at. And so it was really very meaningful and emotional to return with this movie. And we had a really great slot in the big theater, and it was the final Sundance in Park City. And it was, you know, I felt like a big shot.
Are you like at a cocktail party explaining yourself to Richard Linklater or something?
No, I'm here with you.
No, I mean, sorry. How can I put this, David? When you're at Sundance,
yeah.
do you find yourself?
No. I mean, it's weird. You know, the Sundance experience that I had this time, and often, is there's so much trying to promote your movie that you're just carting yourself around to all these places to get interviewed, and to like in between, in my case, I'm like started dealing with my kids that I was with, and like then maybe seeing some friends. So I didn't get to meet a lot of other filmmakers, is the long answer to the could have been a short answer.
But you do feel like you belong?
Yeah. Sometimes I have to stop, because I think, like all humans, I feel like I know nothing. And I also, in many ways, very genuinely feel like I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do and how to start my career. And I fully, not jokingly, genuinely do feel that way a lot of the time. And then I do have to stop and remind myself at points, oh, actually, I've done a lot of stuff, and I've been around for a really long time, and I've gotten to a certain place, and that's great. And I'm proud of myself for that. So it's both.
You and Ken Marino have a cover band.
Yes.
And
I laughed just by that sentence.
The scale of this cover band is very high.
Yes.
On that, I mean, you're right up there with, I guess, AC/DC, your top cover bands.
Yeah.
At what point did it go from, we are going to goof around like dad garage rock band guys in a literal garage, to we should bring 12 people on tour?
I think I just have this, and Ken too, maybe just this chip in me where I can't just leave it alone and just do something for fun. Like, it has to be a big project. And so what was genuinely just a bunch of dads screwing around in the garage for fun, you know, we put a few little clips of it on Instagram, and people were like, this is great. And we're like, oh, great. That means and so suddenly we're playing San Francisco Sketch Fest, and then suddenly we're playing rock clubs around we're about to do Irving Plaza in New York and do this whole East Coast tour. And we're playing a lot of like big venues where real bands play, and it's a big whole show and everything. And yes, as you mentioned, there's like 10, 11 people on stage, and it's like a whole massive operation, but it's not like a money-making operation, and it's still like a hobby.
Far too massive to be. I mean,
right.
Part of what you're doing here is shooting yourself in the foot professionally
every day,
because you've had very successful, millions of views YouTube videos, and people love to see Ken Marino sing Paul Simon covers or whatever it is. However, when you film it beautifully and there's 12 people on camera and 14 people are coming on the road, it's physically impossible to make money.
No, it's absurd. It's so stupid. And I remember, because, we did something similar when we did this state tour, which is, there's 11 people in the state. Maybe there was 8 of us in the show. And then we realized we're doing, I guess we really do need a costume person. We need like a sound and the lighting. And then it was like, oh my God, we're making so much money at each of these little shows in theory, but it's all out the window. And then you see like, oh, next week, the stand-up comedy guy is going to come in, fill the same room for the same price. And he's got nothing. He's going to just take 100% of that. And so I've gotten the wrong business, but I love working with a bunch of people. But yeah, it's still basically a break-even operation, and it's a lot of time, but it's fun.
So why are you doing that and not directing episodes of The Goldbergs?
I should be directing episodes of The Goldbergs, and I should not be doing this. But at the moment, No one's offering me episodes of the Goldbergs. And
Do you think it's possible because every time you go into a meeting, you want to talk about your dad rock band?
oh God, I don't know. It's
Do you go into meetings and they say, do you have any film pitches? And you say, well, I've been thinking we can handle Steely Dan now.
yeah, I don't know. This is becoming a therapy session.
We've been hesitant to do Steely Dan because it's really pretty complex in terms of the changes and stuff.
I will say, if you want to know the truth, sometimes I'm like, somebody sends me a script like, oh, this is a movie you could make, or this is a project you can get involved in. And my job is just to look at it and read it. But I'm like, but really what I need to do first is, figure out the drum part to Born to Run and chart it out in my weird color-coded drum chart system that I invented, and spend time making sure the fonts are right. And then if I have time before I get tired at night, I'll read that script that somebody sent me. That would be a real job.
Has it changed your relationship with the people with whom you play? Some of whom are, like Ken, the people with whom you make movies and TV shows?
Yeah. I mean, and everyone in the band, most people in the band I go many, many years back with, or as far as college. No, it's actually been fun we made the movie over the past year and a half, along with doing a lot with the band during that same time. And it's been sort of fun to have the same partner in both, because we will shift gears as needed, and we'd say, okay, we have to do the set list for tomorrow night, and now let's write the new draft of the script. And I don't know, not too bad.
Do you guys make each other crazy?
Sometimes, of course. I mean, like, we're like a married couple, and like any two people that spend that much time together, we're going to have our issues, but we're two people that like to stop and talk it through if we have a problem, and like really try to communicate as adults. And so it works out.
How much of your time do you spend doing magic tricks?
Less than I did for a long time. I would say throughout, I'm in my mid 50s now, but throughout my 30s and 40s, I really spent a lot of time doing it. I think the band has taken some of my hobby time from that, but I still do a lot. I almost always have a deck of cards, and I'm always taking some time to continue my studies.
How did you? Well, I just.
You think I'm pathetic?
It's not pathetic. It's not pathetic.
It's just something I enjoy.
It's different from me in my taste, but it's not pathetic. It's a reasonable taste. It's not. I'm not saying it's bad.
Everyone has things they're interested in.
Did you do it from when you were little?
I did it from when I was little. I was a kid magician. I did birthday parties when I was 12. For even younger kids.
This is a pretty common comedy story.
Yes, comedy and magic have a lot of overlap, and drums. Weirdly, I feel like comedians, drummers, and of course all musicians and magicians, a lot of overlap.
Comedy drummers, you got your Fred Armisen, your John Wurster.
Sure, John Wurster's so great.
Your magician
Will
comedians
Ferrell plays great drums too.
Oh, there you go. Your magician comedians, you got Johnny Carson and Steve Martin.
Harry Anderson.
Harry Anderson maybe might even be a magician comedian.
Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah, it's
a lot.
What's the best magic trick or effect that you know how to do?
One of the first things I learned when I got very serious about card magic was, there's different names for it, but basically it involves fully and clearly shuffling a deck of cards, and then one by one pulling out all of one suit in a particular order. And then at the climax is that all the cards are in perfect order.
How do you do it?
I'm not going to say.
What?
Lots of skills, lots of study and practice.
I'd love to know. Let me know.
I'll tell you never.
Are there things that you haven't gotten to do in your career that you feel like you missed out on?
Totally. I mean, I do actually really love acting, and I've done some, and I continue to. I've done acting parts all with some regularity over time, but they're usually pretty small, and I feel like I could have done more of that over the years. And I also, as a filmmaker, really want to, and still intend to, explore more non-comedic genres. I want to make a thriller. I want to make like a psycho thriller. Then I want to make a conspiracy thriller and different kinds of thrillers.
Like a parallax view?
Yeah, exactly. Those kind of movies are, the conversation. I've always wanted to do something like that. And I certainly want to make a musical. I did mount a stage musical earlier this year with Kristen Bell, which is a whole nother big, different project.
I'm glad you have something to work on.
Yeah.
I hate to think for your time to lie fallow.
Oh, it's ADD. You're just like, you want to fill up your moments.
Well, David Wain, I'm always so happy to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Anytime. Good to see you.